All right. We are recording this like we did the other two. So the other two meetings for the PowerShell training is on YouTube. So if you guys want to go look at them, if you weren't at the other ones. I didn't edit everything out of it, so you'll want to skip through the breaks or whatever. And at the end of last one, for some reason it wouldn't let me take off the last 40 minutes where it recorded and nothing was going on. So it's just a still shot for 40 minutes. Well, I assume it's there for 40 minutes. It's there at the beginning of the 40 minutes. It's there at the end. I didn't watch the rest.
Yeah,
No, it's just a still image. I mean, literally, everybody just freezes.
oh, weird.
Because I cropped everything after that off. And for some reason, the program wouldn't let me delete the rest of it. It just kind of extended what was there on. So anyways, do you want to go ahead and put that other slide deck up? Yeah. Yeah. Don't have a whole lot to cover today, but we do have a few things. The guest Wi-Fi. I think most everybody has that, but this is what it is. We can put it back up on the side screen when I'm done, but for now, all right, VMworld is the week after next. I don't know if anybody's going, but you're going, good deal. And my phone's ringing, but you can just end the call, yeah. So anyway, so we'll be there. It's going to be a busy week. I think my schedule has one session. Everything else is full of other stuff. Leader meetings and the expert meetings and some training classes. And yeah. And it goes till I think my earliest night gets over at 1 a.m. So the rest of them are like 3 a.m. I think one night. But so we'll see if I actually make it back. All right. So anyways, can you go back to that slide? Is it going auto, or are you advancing it?
No, I'll figure it out.
All right. Our next meeting is September 19th. So again, it's the third Wednesday. And I don't have my computer up here, so I have to keep looking. But Kyle Ruddy will be speaking from VMware. He'll be remote. If you guys don't know who Kyle Ruddy is, he's the sales engineer. I'm going to butcher it. I should have made notes, but anyways, he works with PowerCLI and the guys who actually write the program, the interface. And so if we ever need anything, we can go through him. He's from Indianapolis originally, now lives down in Tampa, but so he'll be joining us remotely, presenting. Rubric will be here sponsoring. Was there anything else on that slide? Do you remember? Oh, and our Slack channel. I think most everybody is in here is in that. But if you want to join, there's the link to join, or you can get me your email address and I can get you into the Slack chat, the Slack workspace. So, all right, now we can go on to the next slide. As was announced last month and maybe the month before, we did get 4th place in the community challenge. So I know it was briefly discussed what we would like to have. Has anybody thought about? I know there hasn't been any discussion really, but about whether we should do an instructor-led lab or a social lab. So a social lab is where you bring your own laptop. The instructor-led lab is where they bring the computers. You don't have to bring your own laptop. Both of them are still instructor-led, so I don't know why they call it the same thing or call it differently, even though they're both done that way. But or we could have an expert come in and speak. I know my vote's to do some type of lab. So because I think with us having the ability to do some remote speaking, I think that takes some of that out of the mix. So although in person is still a little bit better than being over the internet. So anyways, does anybody have any thoughts? Okay, social lab, okay. Anybody else have a preference? How about, okay, if we do lab, whether instructor or social lab, I guess that really is a small piece of it. What topic? And I guess maybe we should talk about it at the next meeting and actually have what the options are, I guess, because you're kind of going off the top of your head at the moment. But if you go out to hol.vmware.com, that's their hands-on labs. There's a lot of them out there you can take for free. They're just not instructor led that way, but you can see what ones are available through there. And if whatever we want to do is not on there, we can ask them to do something possibly. So we haven't had a whole lot of communication about. Yeah, they were supposed to have a meeting with VMware to talk to them about it, and VMUG's kind of been silent since then. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. I mean, I know they're busy getting ready for VMworld because there's a lot of VMUG stuff as well as the VMware stuff, going on. So I'm not going to ask them about it right now. So because I know they've got their hands full. So, but be thinking about that going there. Don't forget about the VMUG Advantage giveaway that we're doing in December. Every entry, or you get an entry for every time you're here, and then you also get it for the online communication. So, do you have a question? No? Okay. Sorry about my allergies. Yeah, so anyway, so that's, I think most everybody's familiar with that. There's more information on our website too about that, but Tim won our first one. If you're not familiar with VMUG Advantage, it's a great program. We're not going to go over the details tonight though. So, but we do have a couple giveaways, and since there's not a whole lot of people here, you're going to get some nice gifts. We have an Echo Dot, a Rebel umbrella, and if you're not familiar with it, we'll demo it here in a little bit. It's basically an inverted umbrella when it's down. When you put it up, it looks like a regular umbrella, but the top goes on the inside instead of on the outside where you get wet. So when you close it up, all the water is enclosed inside and you've got the dry side. So pretty nice. And then we have a nice tumbler. So, all right. Couple other things I had that I didn't put on there, and should have wrote down. Oh yeah, and our sponsor. We got to make sure to thank our sponsors. Rubric sponsored our whole third quarter, so they will be here next month speaking. But they went ahead and sponsored the whole quarter rather than just the one meeting. So that was nice. What's that? Oh yeah, nice. Yeah, I got VMUG socks on. I was like, I looked at socks. I'm like, that's VMUG day. Let's wear VMUG socks. It's like that. CDW. So I got a few other brands, but anyways. So it was around VMworld stuff. Well, the member survey, we had it up on the slides last month. We had been told it'd be through the end, at least through VMworld. Well, they've already cut it off. They cut it off August 1st. So that's if you didn't get a chance to do it, and you have an idea, then just email member services at vmug.com, and they will get your ideas included. So, yeah, I'll think of the other one and probably here in a little bit, and I'll talk about it at the end. So, all right, who's going first? Tim, are you going first, or? Yeah. All right, well, I'll turn it over to Tim and let him start presenting. No questions until the end. Oh, sorry. Which Wi-Fi password? He will put it up here on the side screen here in just a moment. Because I don't know it off the top of my head.
Do you want me to share my screen?
Yeah.
Well, as David said, this is the third and final installation of discussing PowerShell PowerCLI that we've had. There should be sheets back there if you want to log in remotely. You can RDP to some of these desktops if you want to try any of these on your own. All the user accounts have the same password. We can give you a user account that you can log in with, or you can just watch above. But we've talked about quite a few things. So I threw some notes together. Ryan's got some things he's going to go over as well. Just some stuff that I've worked on recently that I found to be extremely, extremely helpful. The first thing that's on the list, this is the page of the August 15th PowerShell Notes. Everything working all right? One of the things that I ran across was in Active Directory in our environment, I was pulling out the Active Directory groups and searching through the descriptions and some of the values in the Active Directory groups once I get it into an object array. And that's one of the things that we've talked about in PowerShell, how, like you can see here, I pulled services. And if I look at the first element in there, this just got a list of services on this particular machine. So the first one in the list is Active Directory Web Services. And in that, I can get a list. These are all the different properties and stuff that you can look at on that particular item. They'll, by default, list a few of the things that are most common, but you can also look here and look at service handle and machine name and display names and some of these other things. When I'm talking about object storage and variable, that's what I mean. It's not just X equals 1, but you can have all of these items. There's even methods in there that you can do to go in there and start and stop the services using this variable, okay? So at work, one of the things I was working on in going through some of the Active Directory groups and looking for particular paths to shares and to identify an Active Directory group they use to manage access to that. Well, we have over 57,000 Active Directory groups. And so that can take upwards of, I don't know, an hour to pull that off of the domain controller, which I'm sure somebody is probably going nuts, going, what happened to my domain controller? Because I download all that. So once you get all of that information in that variable, each time you run the script, especially when you're just troubleshooting and you, oh, there's a bug, so you run it again, and you come back an hour later once you got all the list. Well, if it's something that doesn't change very often, you can save yourself a ton of time, and you can actually export that as an XML file. And so the example I have here, if I take this list of services, which there's 209 services in this variable. And I can take this list of services and I can pipe it to this export CLI XML command and give it a name. Now it saved it. We can open that up and go look at it. I do. So if we go open that directory, and I'm logged into the domain controller. So now I got this file, services.cli XML. I can actually open that in Notepad. Nil. What was the, oh, servers, that's why. Yeah. That's why I went so fast the last time. So basically what you end up with is an XML file with all of that same data stored in there. It's not really human readable. But, and I know this didn't take very long, but if I turn around and say import now I just loaded all those same objects. I've still got the same. Notice I lost the methods because it's not the originating, it doesn't have that tied back into that these are the services, but I at least have all the properties. So if that's something that I'm just going to use and reuse and I want to be able to search and act on that, okay, granted, 209 services didn't take that long, but if you're dealing with 57,000 Active Directory groups, okay, you just went from an hour to load that variable to just a minute, under a minute. So that's just kind of a helpful thing I ran into, which is a lot cleaner because you get all of this stuff back out as your objects than taking the same thing and exporting it as a CSV file and then importing it back in. So that was something I ran across I thought was kind of helpful. Another thing that I ran across, I've used a number of different modules and functions over the years, but we talked in the beginning about the PowerShell. Now you get all your modules off of the internet. And one of the modules that I ran into is called Import Excel. And it's already installed on here, but if you want to, it goes out to the internet and installs it on your machine. Some of them I've run into the past couple of days is I get this error where you have to run it from an admin account. So run your PowerShell window as administrator to be able to install modules, but it's already on here. And if I do a get module, the import Excel, the current version is 5.1.1. Now there's a ton of commands. Get module will show all the ones you have loaded. You could I could do the same thing. I could do get module, and I use this in a script to make sure that the module's loaded before I continue on. And if it's not there, then import it or whatever. But all the commands that you got, and I thought this was kind of funny as I was looking through the websites. He's got two in here. Import UPS and import USPS. If you go to their website and look, these are actual, give it a tracking number and it will get, I looked as like, is there an import FedEx? No, there's not. For whatever reason, he added in there UPS, it'll do a screen scrape and give you the tracking information for UPS or postal service, but whatever. What that has to do with Excel, I have no idea. But with this, the biggest thing that I use this for is exporting data from like your object list of services and whatnot. You can export that to an Excel spreadsheet. And this does way better than anything else that I've used before. One thing that always trips me up with trying to export things as CSV is the stupid comma, because that'll booger up your data every time. If you've got somebody's name with a comma in it, then suddenly now you only got that much imported in that column, and then this one's over here and everything's offset. And then the other thing is everything comes in as text. So you got a whole bunch of numbers that are now as text. So then you got to go in and massage your Excel spreadsheet, not to mention you got to resize all your columns and do your filtering and do your sorting and do your colorization and all this other kind of stuff. This will do it all. And this is a lot more powerful than what I've used it for. You have a lot of capabilities, and Excel is not loaded on this machine. Excel Viewer is, so that you can see what it looks like when it comes out. But I run it on servers that don't have Microsoft Office installed, and you can still export your data as an Excel workbook and manipulate it and whatnot. So the example that I have on there, if we go in, actually, I think I have this. Well, I'll just type it anyway. So I'm going to get a list of users, and thanks to Ryan, we have tons of them now. And we talked about this last week. So I'm just going out of Active Directory. I'm going to pull all of them, along with all of their properties as well. Assuming I drop the S. So there's a total of 317. Okay, so now I take that and I send that to the command export Excel. And I give it the path file name that I wanted. Give it a worksheet name. And remember, PowerShell is not case sensitive, but I have a tendency to like to do capitals just to make it. And if you get involved into this, you'll see a lot of options for setting these up, but I'm just using the ones that I generally do.
Yeah, I think I'm excited. No, it's great that you can freeze the top row, all the stuff you normally do when you first open an Excel spreadsheet. It's ready to go for you.
Yeah, that's the big thing. You don't have to do a lot of manipulation after the fact.
I had a project that I had to use this for. I can't remember. It's been a while since I used it, but I know that once I found this, it saved a ton of Excel manipulation after the fact. I just exported it directly to it. Didn't do anything after the fact.
Yeah, I thought, how in the world are we going to view all of this, all of these Excel spreadsheets? So I went online. I was like, I know there's Office viewers out there that you can get. Got to the website. As of April 2018, Microsoft discontinued the Excel viewer. Yeah. However, some places are a little slow. So I was able to still download a copy of it. So, but yeah, as you can see, it's already nice and colorized. It's got your nice little every other row on there. You got your headers up at the top. You can sort. Your filtering is already turned on, which I can't do anything because this is just the viewer. But and if this was the full version of Excel, this is actually set up as a table. So if you're going to reference it or doing anything in Excel, it's already created as a table, plus the tab down here, the domain users. You can add multiple worksheets to the workbook. So if I download a bunch of VM information, I can actually export them all to the same workbook file under different worksheet tabs, and it's already there. That's one script that I run on a weekly basis, is pulling all the Windows servers out of Active Directory. And we have 6 different domains that we have. So I've got a tab for every domain so I can go find all the machines, because I just love getting those tech support calls and somebody says, well, server such and such isn't working. I'm thinking, what in the world is that? There it is. I'll look it up in the spreadsheet. So
More importantly, where is that server at?
yeah. Well, for me too, the description field, they try and generally put the point of contact so you know who to call. Say, hey, your server's broken. So that's just kind of, that's the big help for me right there. And these are fields. I mean, you can't tell a lot because this is just the viewer, but you can see these are actual dates now and not formatted as text and whatnot. So now you can basically send that report off to management or whoever, and it's ready to go. Now, I did look up some of the other commands that it does that I rarely, if ever, use. You can also import data. So if I go in, and we're going to talk about this one, text file parsing. But if I do, I can do an import Excel. And that file is in there. I can also specify if it's got multiple tabs on there, which worksheet or whatever, but that's only got one. So, and it just read the data. That was in that Excel spreadsheet, which is this one right here. So the flip side, you can not only save your information as an Excel spreadsheet really nicely, you can also import it in. And there's a lot more involved. That's why I included the syntax in the notes there, but you can have it read just a certain, this row down to that row. You can certain tabs, pick out whatever you need out of that. So that's a very quick way of retrieving your information out of Excel. There's also the ability to, which I don't think it's going to show anything on here, because actually the file was created by here, so there's no information in it, but somebody who actually created a Word document or Excel document that actually has all this author information and stuff in there, you can pull that out of it. You can copy a worksheet, although I did figure out that I included the notes in here on that. Copy Excel worksheet, you can take source workbook and the worksheet name, destination worksheet, which it can be the same name, but it has to be a different workbook. So you can't copy within the same one, but we can add we're going to open so basically, I have that worksheet open. I can add a worksheet to it. I go back and open this up now. Okay, that's not what I wanted. Now I got my new, that's the tab I added. And like I said, this machine does not have Microsoft Excel installed on it. So you can manipulate it. You can add more data into it, do whatever. So there's just so much, you just got to get in and play around with it. But that's a definite big help. Now, multi-threading. Generally, when you do scripting, scripting is generally single-threaded, right? So one thing at a time, sequential operation. PowerShell does have the ability to do multi-threading, and that's actually called Windows PowerShell Workflows. And I created some examples. A lot of these came from websites, and I'll kind of give you the overview. I have not used this in a real live script yet, but I was beginning to look into it when we're talking about one of the projects is resetting permissions on file shares, and these are huge. And trying to think, okay, if we start at the top, we can actually spawn off multiple instances of resetting everything down below would obviously be faster. But workflows in PowerShell, the commands that run inside that workflow kind of works like a function. It'll return an object if you create the workflow section and then you actually have it run or set a variable equal to that, and you will get a value back from that workflow. But the commands that are in there that run in parallel, first of all, whatever's in here can run and come back in any order. So it just spits them all out and they run, and you'll get them back at any particular time. So that's one thing that you have to be aware of, is that whatever you put in there, you could get your processes back before you get your sim instances. You know what I mean? Yes, it's whatever happens and whatever comes back. It's like spitting out a bunch of jobs, and this job finishes first. This job started late for whatever reason and comes back. Now, the commands that are in here, although they look like PowerShell commands, are not executed as PowerShell commands. And that's one of the things that the websites tried to explain, is that these are actually converted into kind of similar to like a machine language and executed that way. So, which is fine as long as I run my command and it runs like you want it to run, you get what you want. The flip side of that is not every command that's out there is available to run as a workflow object. And one example, and I have in there, like SCCM commands. They don't have the workflow equivalent, whatever you want to call it, for the SCCM commands. But they give you the ability to still run that by using, there's a, there's a command in there, inline script or something like that. Yeah, inline script, to where basically then it executes PowerShell commands as separate job threads and whatever. Not as fast as if they can be their machine language or whatever they are in a regular workflow, but you do have the ability to execute actual PowerShell commands. You're still in parallel multiple times over. You also have, there's a command option in here to sequence, so that you can say, I want the, instead of parallel, you put in sequence, and then these commands will execute in that order. So whatever you're doing, you want to do 1 + 1 = 2, and then the result of that, 2 × 2 = 4. Well, you can't do 2 × 2 = 4 until you're done with the 1 + 1 = 2. So if you've got something that you've got to do in order, you can tell it to execute commands in order. Obviously, every time you do that, you do inline script, you do that kind of stuff, you're slowing down your benefit, but there are options. So I do have we don't have SCCM in this environment, but I did throw in there just so you can get an idea of my example script where I did with SCCM. And in that case, and variables too are kind of weird because they have to be passed into the workflow. So within the workflow, if you want to use a variable that you have out here, like username, inside the workflow, you have to say, I want to use this variable that's out here. So you have to specify it inside. Everything that's outside of the workflow isn't automatically shared inside of the workflow. But everything that's in the workflow is part of what gets run in this multi-instance. There are switches that you can limit it, because that's one thing I was concerned about, is feeding it a list of 1,000 directories and say, go through and reset the permissions on all of these, and you can blow your server up because it's going to try and run 1,000 different instances. So there are limiting commands that you can limit it to say, I only want to run 10 instances at a time. So it'll do it in chunks. I know that this is a real complicated concept here. I mean, just from what I've been reading and what I've been looking up but I'm trying to give you kind of the overview so you can keep that in the back of your mind. If you've got something that's a very long running script that you could benefit from, if I could do multiple things at a time, this is where you can start looking. So if I take this, I'll copy this and put it in here. Okay. So then if I run right.
So then basically,
Right. So the first thing here, so the first result you actually get out is actually your PowerShell process from this server, which is the second line that's in the parallel. And then the next one is, it's an instance, computer system, operating system, I'm not sure. And then you got your list of services that start with the letter S. So these all ran, these 4 commands ran at the same time, but when they come back, whichever one completes first, that's what you get. Versus if you just ran these commands separately.
I was just kind of up on it because it is kind of running through, but then you get back.
Right. Right.
It's not waiting for a response. So that would have an advantage over, like you're saying, basically, if you're running a loop, tons of servers. Potentially.
Right. Because in this case, I can actually go and run those commands separately, but you can see it runs one, and then when it's done, then it runs the next, and then when that's done, it runs the next, and when that's done. Now, where this could be, if you've got 100 commands in there and you tell it to only run 10 at a time, 2 and 3 come back first, so then they start running the next 2 in the list, and now you've gotten real jumbled up. Who's running at what time? Right. But like I said, you can also, let's do this. So in this case, it's going to check against the servers. And you can put a parameter in there. So it operates just like a function. but what's in there is manipulated differently than a function. So I'm going to tell it, go ahead and execute that with the list of servers, which is all 3 of them. So one of them didn't work for some reason. DM1. But you can see what I got back was, it wasn't just like a result code, like true or false. I actually got back objects which contained, this is the WMI computer system. So there you can actually get your computer name and a domain and manufacturer, which, you know, that doesn't mean anything because it's a VM anyway, but so you have the ability, if you look through some of the examples that I have, to run more complicated, like in this case, I'm going to run against a list of servers and get back that information. And there's that, using the server to get the outside variable name, but I want to add in, so I get info. So I go through and get all 3 of the servers theoretically, and then I want to add a member and say I want to use the server name, and then export that out. So I'll probably get an error again, but so I'm just kind of trying to give you examples of how you can use this information for whatever reason that didn't. I don't see the host name in there, but you can actually go out and get, I must be missing a piece here. You can have it go out, if you've got a big long list of servers, you can go out and get at 10 at a time or 20 at a time, get that information and still return it as an object, as if you had just done a loop through the list one at a time. So that's an example of where, just bear in mind, you know, you have it do 10 at a time, that's 10 times the going out and pinging and polling WMI and getting that information and pulling it back. So you're going to increase the resources on either whatever server or whatever workstation or network that you're using. But okay, 3 servers is not a big deal, but you can see where the benefit can have if you have 1,000 servers. You know, if you can do 10 or 20 at a time, you can get that information back in a fraction, assuming the network people don't call you. Yeah, don't do this.
You get that phone call a lot.
That's why I keep changing my computer name.
Talk about PS remoting here a little bit, and you can be on someone else's computer.
Yes, exactly. So the next thing I had in there was the SCCM command, kind of giving you that. Now I'll give you, here's the workflow. Now these SCCM commands don't have that machine equivalent or whatever. So if you try and execute those inside of a workflow, you're going to get an error to some effect that says it doesn't have a command that can work that. So that's why you put it inside of the inline script. And then basically you're saying, I want to run these are PowerShell commands, and it will execute basically kind of like a PowerShell script name on each one. Now I'll give you another hint that I found out is that when it deploys those additional PowerShell instances to run those commands, the module that you have loaded on the outside is not loaded on the inside of those. So that's why you have to go in there and say, hey, I want to load the SCCM module into each one of those. because it's not loaded by default, and then change. I think we talked about PS Drive. Did we talk about PS Drive at one point in time? PowerShell will let you can see the HK, current user, local machine, registry stuff, variables, obviously your C drive, Active Directory is in there too. You can actually change to those drives. If you load the configuration manager SCCM module, then you get another PS drive. That's the site code for SCCM. And you have to run a lot of those commands from that. So just like you're doing, like you would browse through your C drive and stuff like that, you can actually browse to you're browsing the registry the same as you would browse a regular drive. That was probably a bad choice. At least it's not complaining about the calculator. So yeah, in the SCCM example, I have to change to the site code because that's the way SCCM commands are run. But you can then, and this is inside that loop, so you can run that against multiple machines, go out and find all the device collections with a certain ID number, collect the information, add it in, and spit it back. Now, what do you expect that variable to look like when you get it back? If you give it a list of servers or give it a list of device collections that you want to look up, and then you spit it out to this workflow to gather the information and give it back, do you expect them to come back in alphabetical order? Probably not, because it depends on, this server is on the other side of the continent, and this server's on the other side of the planet. Some of these things are going to come back at different times. And so you're going to be all jumbled up, which is why it's really nice then that you take that variable and you dump it to Excel and you click sort and you're done. Because whenever data comes back is how it's going to be stored in that variable. All right. So that's just kind of that's a really, really high level overview of how you could get into multi-threading in PowerShell, called workflows. Okay, and then one other thing that I've worked on quite a bit recently, the access management group at work has been flooded with requests for access to network shares and whatnot. And on that drive is a file, testfile.txt. Just kind of a heads up, I have Outlook route those. We get notification emails, that this ticket is now in the system, this ticket is now in the system, which includes details. I dump them all into a folder. You can actually highlight all of those emails in a folder in Outlook and save as a text file, and it just exports them all appended to a text file. So this is an example of, I cut way down, and then obviously change the names to protect the innocent, but this is an example of a file that, okay, now that I have all of these emails exported into this text file, how can I go through and parse the data and get it into something like an Excel spreadsheet or getting it into an object variable to manipulate it? And like the one example, and that's actually part of what this script did, was once it got what the user wanted access to, this is the share they wanted access to, then I searched for that. Once I parsed that out, I searched the 57,000 Active Directory groups for the one that had this share name in the directory. So then, okay, boom. Now I can put together a spreadsheet that says, okay, for this ticket, this person needs to be added into this Active Directory group, and it's done. So this is just some ways to manipulate data and get it all together. But so how do I take this information and piece it into something that I want to read and manipulate on? So get content. That's the file, the ASCII file, the text file reading command in PowerShell by default reads line by line, which is fine because we need to process it line by line. So this is where you got to put your logical thinking hat on and think about, okay, I'm the computer and all I can see is one line at a time. And you just go through, okay, so I'm looking for the first line that has the incident number in there. So I'll read this line, I don't care. I'll read this line, I don't care. This line, oh, okay, this has got incident in it. So that's where I've got, actually I use like. So like says there's the asterisk, your wild character. So it's actually looking for the line that starts with incident. So there's incident, but it doesn't find that, right? So then that's a blank line. Oh, here we go. Here's incident. So then you play around with doing your math. Okay, I found the line that starts with incident. So then I manipulate that and I say, okay, I want my incident number, which is index of. So I'm searching that line that I just read, find the first instance where it says INC 00000. So it's going to find here. So it's going to give you this number here, which is, where's that at? Column 10. So basically, this is going to equate to 10, okay? Because you're looking for incident 00000, but it's going to return the first character of that. So you're looking for this, you're going to get this number. And then I want to read 15 characters after that. So I'm going to come back with this whole incident number. All right, so, okay, now get on to the next slide. That's done with that because it doesn't match any of these others. So it loops through and reads the next line. So now I'm looking for first name. Oh, nothing there, nothing there, nothing there, first name. Okay, so then I find that. So now I've got my first name, do the same thing. Just peel that out of there, get the last name, the login ID. These are all if statements. So every line gets evaluated for each one of these until what? So I'm reading one line at a time until I get to the end of the email, which I want to find the one that says requester was. So you go down through, I got justification, I got the permission level that they wanted, I got the network path that they wanted access to, and then boom, there's a requester was. So that is my flag that have reached the end of that email, right? So then I take all that information I put together and dump it to the next line in the array. And then reset everything, because then the next line I read is going to theoretically start a new email, right? So I'm going to go through the same thing, which each one of these, boop, hit that again. So I'm just I'm trying to kind of show you the logical thinking process of how you can take it, and I know there's other examples we've had at work where they're just going through the output from logs and everything else, how you can glean that data, because this is not something you can just import into Excel this way. But if you want to come out to having this, and here's where it took the incident number, your first name, your last name, your login ID, the summary, the date and time, and the access level that they wanted and the network path. But all of this does is just read this entire text file line by line, and it will do it really quickly, line by line. And then when you get all to the end of the file, then you just output it, and there's where you just set it out to your Excel, and you're done. Now, obviously, I've stripped out a lot of the stuff, like I said, searching Active Directory groups and things like that, that you can add information to. But This is just kind of an example of how you can take something, a log file or whatever, and you can parse all the data out of it into something more usable. So there's some examples in here on that too, or and that example file was in there. Yeah. So actually, oh, and when you're in these weird drives, you got to get back out. So if I run that, boom. And that's how fast it just went through and read all that data. Which this is extremely helpful, but it's also what you can do in the midst of all of that to add into that to help, PowerShell scripting, whether you're working with just Excel manipulating data, it all comes down to what can you do to make your job easier or to help other people make their jobs easier or whatever. So I'm just trying to jog your thought processes a little bit and just things that you can do. Any questions or thoughts or comments or anything before I give it over to Ryan sitting on the lower level?
Oh, I'll come up there.
Just a quick question. It's like simple. When you're doing tab completion, is there a way to get it to display a list? Thank you. When you're doing tab completion, is there a way to have it list all the possible options with what starts with that letter, kind of like it does in Bash?
Did you do that from the
I
see.
that when I get into VS Code.
Huh?
We'll get into that here when I talk about VS
Okay, because it drives me crazy how I have to keep hitting tab to roll through.
And I will tell you that
ISE will help you. In ISE, it shows you over on the right-hand side, all of them.
Yeah, and am I on? Okay. I'm learning VS Code because basically everything I've seen inside of PowerShell and all that other stuff, I love ISE, but they're going all VS Code. So I have started learning I decided just to force myself to learn VS Code. And in there, it does, if you download the extensions, and we'll kind of talk about that here when I get up there, some of the VS Code stuff, it does work really well inside that. So we'll go over that here in a few minutes.
Because I've been playing a little bit with PowerShell this year to see where it can fit into the environment. Just automation is super fun, but trying to find out where it can fit in, which is the few things that miss.
Once you start doing it, you'll find a lot more places you can use it.
Sure.
So, all right, we're going to take a quick break. If you guys need anything else to eat, there's still more back there. And restrooms.
Yeah, you should see my OneNote.
Yeah.
Up here all the time. I'm going to stand up a little bit because being a network administrator for a school corporation that started, I thought I had it off. Hold on. There, better? All right, being a network administrator for a school corporation up last Wednesday, I've been running around with my head cut off. So my presentation had great intentions, but it's not going in there. So we're going to cover some things and we're going to talk about a couple other things. First thing that we kind of talked about after the last meeting, we're going to talk about GitHub just a little bit, just because if once you start writing some scripts and you start using them and then all of a sudden you lose something or you make a change and you like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that, you're going to really wish you had some sort of source control. I don't know how other people do it because I'm not a developer. So they probably teach you in development classes how to do all that. So this is kind of what I've learned. Basically, all I did was, oh, that was probably not the smartest thing. Open up my Firefox tabs. We'll see what all opens up. Oh, nothing. Good. What I just did was go out to GitHub and created my own repo out there. If I can type. Were they using zip files? And there's my repository, and I'm signed in, so you're seeing all my private repositories. You can go ahead and create your own repositories and just create them. And then what I use to sync up my repositories up to GitHub is they have the Github Desktop, which is right here. And basically, when you download it, you add a local repository, which I could add one of my other ones and show you how that works. Nope. Clone a repository is what I want to do of my other ones. So I can clone my MDT one. So once you create your repositories online, you create that, you can clone it down to your local device. And that shouldn't be that big of a one coming down. And then what I do is I have a folder on my computer called GitHub. And then the GitHub Desktop will monitor those folders, and anytime you make a change in that folder, so you change your file, it will track that, and then inside the GitHub Desktop, so let's just create a new folder in here called, we'll just do a text document called test, because you know that's simple. Now inside of GitHub Desktop, you'll see that I have added a new file on the left-hand side, and I've added the comments. So you can commit that then back up to the repository in GitHub. So what I do is I work in there, do my changes. It forces you to create a summary of what you did. So usually most of my summaries are updated, basically a very broad topic of what I was just working on that particular day. So again, this is just a test. We commit it. We push it back up to the server, and it's up on the server. So the nice thing is I've got my laptop, but I also have my desktop. So I can work on the same files once I've pushed everything up to the desktop. So at the end of the day, when I'm getting ready to leave work, I'll check and make sure I don't have any commits that I need to make. I'll push it up, and then when I'm at home, I'll pull down any of the changes since the last time I'm on there, and then I'm always working on the same files everywhere I need to work on. Makes it really helpful, so I don't have to worry about passing zip files back and forth, having a thumb drive, don't have to worry about crashes. And then the other nice thing in here, so let's go over to this one. You can see along the side every day that you've made a change and what you've done in a particular file. Those are not good ones to look at. Let's look at this one. So here I was just cleaning up some code and some of the other stuff I've did. It tells you what file I was working on right here and shows you what I've added or changed to the individual files. So as I was working on some of this stuff, I can kind of go back and see what I was working on in a particular day. And then if I know, well, it was working 2 days ago, I haven't tried really working on it, I can go back and see what I did in those days and kind of track out and see it. And you can commit those commits as often or as little as you want. So when I'm working on a file, working on a script, in its early phases, I'll make a ton more commits in the early as I get little parts going, so I can kind of build my history on that particular file and what I'm working on. And then as I get going, when I'm making just minor tweaks and changes, I don't make as much commits because I'm just working on some little things. And I didn't take my ADD meds today. Go ahead.
Do you use branches?
I have not. That's something I haven't got into because I'm the only one working on it. If I had other people in my department or other people working on it, I think I would see branches being important then. And just as another type of work, my workflow is if I, like, as an example, I've talked about this in the past, my student script that I use each year, I create a new file and just start that. So I know my 2017 file worked fine. I can always roll back to that. If I use branches, that would make sense. But just in my particular workflow, I'm just using this really as a way to back up my stuff and have it portable between my machines. And that was I'm probably at a tier 1 of using this, but it saved my bacon a couple of times. Nothing. Yeah, and I personally pay the $5 a month for GitHub to have private repositories. So I don't have anything public. So all my repositories are private, and $5 a month for me to make sure that my code is backed up. It's perfect for me. I don't know if your company will allow it. I don't even know if my boss knows I have it. By the way, if you're watching this, I have this, by the way. But it's all code I write, and it's all stored on my local machine too. So if they need
It's now documented.
What?
It's now documented.
It's now documented. There you go. Watch he was complaining. He wanted a VMUG shirt. He was not very happy that I had a VMUG shirt today. And he says, well, I can get you on the leader committee and all that. Then he stopped and he didn't care anymore. So
Tell him if he comes to a meeting, we'll have a shirt. We'll have shirts someday.
So, yeah. Okay. Justin.
Do you load Desktop on any of your servers or anything, or do you run only?
I run everything locally from my desktop and my laptop. And we'll get into that, why I kind of do some of that stuff I do here in a second. But that's a good question. That didn't come over.
Now make sure to repeat the questions up for.
I am new at this stuff. I'm getting better at it. So the question was, do I load GitHub Desktop on my servers? No, it's basically on my 2 machines. So that leads a nice segue, thank you, by the way, into the next topic that we're going to kind of cover. What's he doing? I'm always worried that he's doing something behind me now. That's why I sat over there the entire time, the first time. Oh, yeah. I don't know what you're putting up behind me, though. You've got control of all that fun stuff. Putting dots on me now. Pretty much. The next topic I want to kind of cover, and I am not going to do it justice. I started working on some of this stuff and realized I don't even use it to its full potential. I'm going to show you some use examples that I use it in at work and let you know that you can do this. You can make this a lot more. And then if you add in the parallelism that Tim was talking about, you get even more, it kind of gets even more fun. PS remoting is very helpful. So when Justin asked and he's making faces in a Snapchat, I can guarantee you that's what he's doing.
I'm Snapchatting my child.
Okay, well, you Snapchat your child. I run all the code from my desktop. If I'm running a code on the server, I actually don't run any code on my server. I use everything from my desktop now that I think about it. All my AD calls are from my desktop. All my AD scripts are running from my desktop. The only code that I have on a server is one. No, I don't have anything on there. Yeah, that's basically, I was just sitting here thinking, I don't really run anything on my server. The only time I've been using PS remoting, go ahead, Justin.
Works great for school systems and AD joined machines, but
yes.
an MSP who doesn't have an AD joined machine and isn't typically on site. Fair enough.
Well, and that's the part of the PS remoting that I did not get into, is because you can do PS remoting from your machine in there. You just have to set up your machine to be part of that, and it's talked about in the book that I'm going to show you here first. Just because I could do it in PowerShell, I am opening up. Let's see how it'll work. On the server. Didn't work. You're kidding me. Oh, you know why? Hold on. I'm worried. It opened it up on another server. Okay, let's try that again. Here we go. Oh, not that. That's. Oh, no, that's funny. So I was running those commands on DM1, by the way. So if you're wondering, that was later in the session. Really should check the prompt before I actually do some more of this stuff here. All this to show you a web page. I could have been there already. It will be. No, it won't. Not without the bracket. There we go. So when I first got into PS remoting and stuff like that, Secrets of PowerShell Remoting. This book is free. It's on LeanPub. If you like it, you can go back and buy it and give them a little bit of money. Do I still have it open over here? I don't still have it open. It's a couple 100-page book. It's a 100-page book at least. But it goes through all of setting up your machines to get remoting working, securing your machines, so you're using certificates. It talks about if your machine is not part of the domain, how to set up PS remoting so it's secure and how you can get into those. It talks about how to remote through a couple of different machines and how all that works. Perfect for Justin. But yes, I am on a domain joined machine, so PS remoting is a lot simpler for me than it is from an MSP that doesn't have to, isn't part of that domain. I just like the fact that I could use PowerShell to open up a web page, but that's just me too, because I'm a geek that way. So, yes, I will pop the link in there. I may drop the PDF in there too. So, how I use PS remoting. So, I have a couple of PowerShell scripts that process CSV files and add them to domain members, and then that's how we license our Adobe suite to all the students and staff. But then Adobe has a process that you have to use that's a Python script to sync it up to their. It's a giant education. It's fun. So I have a server that does nothing but run that sync process because I don't have Python anywhere except for on that server. So I have that all in there. So I remote into that server to kick off that script. I have it as a scheduled task, but sure enough, a teacher will call and say, hey, my class doesn't have this. Can you add them in really quick? And we'll add them in really quick. And then I'll run that just to get them all licensed. So when I usually do remoting, it's in this context, which is this context right here. Enter PS session, the computer name I'm going to. And this is just a generic version because we're not on my domain and all that stuff. Usually the other task that I'll do on this is because I'm not an administrator. The account I run under is not the administrator on the individual boxes. I'll add, and you were asking about all the available options. IntelliSense inside of VS Code, and it gives you all of this. How that is coming through is because inside VS Code, yeah, add the PowerShell extension on the side. Yeah, so this tab right here is the extensions. The PowerShell extension right here, when you install it, gives you all the PowerShell stuff. There's a couple other ones. As a matter of fact, after getting into vExpert, which Justin and I both got our vExperts and got into that Slack channel, which, holy cow, that's a lot of fun. Holy cow! I haven't had time. I wish.
Do you ever sleep?
No, I haven't been able to get into it because I've been so busy with work. I feel like I've missed a ton of stuff, and then I start looking in there, and
if you close it, you might as well just go to the most recent stuff.
Yes, it's exactly what I've realized because like it is nonstop. But in there, someone in the code portion of the vExpert, someone put up their PowerShell or what they run inside of VS Code, the extensions that they run. So I found a couple of cool ones that I just haven't had a chance to play with yet. But there, if you go in here and start searching for extensions for VS Code, it is extremely extensible, and there is a ton of stuff in there. And at some point, we may just have a mini, when I have a chance to fully understand VS Code and get used to it. I think that'd be a fun conversation to talk about in the future.
Maybe we could have a vExpert do it. remote.
I was gonna say, I don't know what he's gonna talk when he's doing his.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what Kyle's going to talk about next month, other than PowerCLI. Obviously.
Yeah, but if you wanted to do a mini break off on VS Code, I don't know what he's using to do that, but I would love someone that actually knows VS Code, because there's a lot about it, and I think if you get someone to kind of show you the ins and outs of it. There's some old stuff on YouTube, but there's nothing really current.
Well, it's weird because it's one of those things it gets deep real fast.
Yeah, and I think it does. There's command palettes and all that stuff in here that I have. It's way more extensible, and compared to ISE, this is like on steroids. But this is Visual Studio, and if you know Visual Studio, all this stuff probably makes sense. But I've just never been trained or taught or done any of that. So again, bracket colorizing. Oh yeah, that was the tab. Yes, and I have, because this is running on the servers that we put up in the cloud. Didn't tie my Git repository to it, but I have started playing with that as well. I thought it was on this laptop, but I actually didn't have it on this laptop. But you can tie your Git, and then so.
It's kind of weird because depending on, at least it's this way with GitLab, but depending on whether you register your repository in Bash or in the command line optional, it will not cross over.
Well, each one is what I've learned. Yeah, what I've learned when I was messing with it, I had had GitHub Desktop on there, so I thought it could just point to the same repository. No, you have to have a separate repository, so you have to have that on there. So, and I haven't, yeah. So yeah, what we were saying is that if you have your repository in VS Code, you can't have your same repository. You can't use the same repository that you use in Git Desktop. So it's basically however you decide to use your workflow, it works great. I like Git Desktop because I also will throw maybe some executables when I'm working on my MDT stuff and my imaging. I'll throw some executables in there and sync them up there, so they're in there and then they're on all my machines. I don't know if we're supposed to do that, but that's what I do. So it works. Yeah, it can handle it, and I'm paying my $5 a month. I'm going to get all my usage out of it that I can. Yeah, Microsoft did buy Git, so. So, and someone's popping up something, and I should shut that down. Slack, man, it's a great time suck every now and then when you have time. I just haven't had time.
Yeah, I'm putting a link into Slack that he's talking about. It's actually to a blog post, right?
Yeah, it was a
The
blog.
virtually ghetto. That's good blog. I'm sure many of us have been there.
Actually, I hadn't until I found it, but then again, another time suck. A time suck that led to another time suck. It was awesome. I didn't get any work done for that half hour.
Virtually ghetto.
Wants to talk about anything virtualization. I got in almost an hour and a half conversation, 2-hour window of time to meet like hundreds of.
All right, so back what I was supposed to start talking about, and we got on sidetracks. No, that's fine. Makes my time go better. So again, what I usually do, because I'm not running as the administrator on that particular account, I'll throw the credentials command in here and add what user context I want to run that under. But seeing as that's not what I need to do here, I was just using that as an example. And IntelliSense is great until it gets in your way when you're trying to run something. So as an example, this command is going to get onto one of the other PCs in the environment, and that it actually changes your prompt down here at the bottom. So now I am running commands on the other server. So it's just like you're SSHing into another machine to be able to run those commands. So and it does it in the same user context. So if you have your credentials or you assign a credentials, you're running that command on that other machine. So as your example is networking guys are starting to get pissy, just, if possible, I wouldn't say to do this, but enter PSH into one of their machines and then run those commands and say, well, I thought we couldn't do that. And here you're running those commands on. I would never say to do that, but that would be fun. If you have a good relationship with your network guys. If you don't have a relationship, that probably will definitely end it then all of a sudden. But that gives you the ability to do that. Use your skills for good, not for bad.
Don't make them mad. They can shut you down.
That's right.
My favorite phone call was at one job, network guy calls me up and he says, what's this server? And he gives me a server name and I said, it's a file server. He says, what does it do? Serves files. Yeah.
Why is it using so much storage space? Come on. No. So the nice thing about this is you can get in and do what you need to do on the particular server. So if I just needed to see if a particular service was running on here, I could do the get service and get all the services that are on there. And tell what's running there. As an example, the service, because we're on VMware, the service that I was particularly looking for. VM tools, and it's running. Now, no, I know that's not a. Okay. So the nice thing is that works great for one server. But what if you have 20 servers that you need to find out if a particular service is running or if a particular file is on a particular location? So the other nice thing about PS remoting is you have the invoke command function. That allows you to run a command on multiple machines at once. What it does is it goes out and creates a session to each of those servers and runs that same thing. So say I needed to see if the VM tools service was on all my VMs. I could do git VM, get the name of all my servers, pump that into invoke command and put, into there. And then the script block that I'm going to run is very simple. Get service, name VM tools. And
Is there a maximum amount of connections you can provide?
There probably is, but I haven't hit it, but I haven't tried to hit it yet. Obviously, it's going to make a remote. Your networking team probably was going to have the bigger issue at some point than more than anything else. I'm not going to do it to everything at that point, but you have to remember it's going to go out, create a remote session instance to each of those individual servers, build that session, run the process, and then close that session if you do it that way. There's also ways to create sim sessions to do that as well and create a session variable so it keeps that session open the entire time to run those commands against those sessions as well. I didn't get into this because that's not stuff I use on a daily basis. So I don't know as much, and I really wish school would have started next week. But just to show you as an example of how that works, again, this is going to go out to DM1 and DM2, run those commands and tell you, and bring them back so you can tell the DM1 and DM2 and shows that, which is very helpful. Anything else on remoting? I have just scratched the surface. And I apologize that I didn't have the time to get into that. I wanted to get into this kind of deep. But anything else anybody has, and we can kind of work through it?
So I've done a little bit of log gathering, just the default get whatever. You can specify the
Computer names.
user name, and I'll go out and look. I guess, have you found any, can you
So here's some, just along that somewhat of that same topic, depending on how many servers you're going to hit, sometimes doing it through invoke command, you might find it running a little bit faster because then it's doing the processing on the local server instead of trying to bring that all over the network before you do that. Yeah, so if your application, your Windows security log is huge or like that, trying to bring that all across, every time I've run into that, if I go onto the server and run it instead of running it from my local machine, it always runs faster and does that because it's not trying to pull all that data. So you want to filter it all there before you bring it down. So some of that time, it depends on where you want to filter it and how much data you want to bring across before you do that filter. So if you run the evoke command or just basically enter that session. Now, the nice thing about enter PS session and some of those other commands, you can create variables in there that you can bring back as well. I forget what those commands are, but I have done it in the past. So you can create those variables and then bring them back to your local computer so you can then manipulate them on there too. Again, I wish I would have had some time because I've seen some of those demos and it works really well. I just didn't have time to make them today. Questions, comments? I thought I shut this down. Well, it's in the back. It's a background here. There we go. I know. Presentation mode, but that would be fun. Yeah. Any other questions? I'm sorry I didn't get it as much. Go ahead, sir, back there in the back.
From the terminal that you have popped up, can you open up that sidebar in ISE that lets you search for all commands?
No, I don't have a way of doing that in here, unfortunately, but because you have tab complete, it helps a really bit. And I will tell you, when I'm working in this, I still have power. As a matter of fact, you can see it right here. I'll still have PowerShell over here. So if I need to do a get help sometimes on a particular command, I have this sitting over here for me URL. Of course, on my work desktop, I've got 3 huge monitors that I can have get help over here. So like in this particular environment, I just have this sitting over here ready to run my get help. And in ISE, I've never really used that particular functionality because I got used to having this other PowerShell window over here. But there's probably, I guarantee you, there's probably an extension out there that will probably do that for you. Come on, Justin, you look like you have a question. Nothing?
Actually, answer my own question. I was trying to figure out how to do the, when you do enter PS session, you can do a dash credential and anything you want to use. Prompt you for.
Yes. Or you can actually create, and this is, I didn't want to get into some of this, but you can actually do the get credentials ahead of time and save that into a variable. So if you're going to use that credentials a lot throughout the day, which I have done that, I'll create my, I'll go ahead and create my, yeah, well, this is particularly if you're using another username or another set of credentials that are not your local credentials. So I'll create my creds. As a matter of fact, I create my creds variable that has my information in there. So just do. Now, it does not verify that that's a proper credentials when you create it, but when you're then use that, so if I were going to, yeah. So as long as you put valid credentials in there, you can do that. And I'm not sure if it'll work. We'll see what happens. Yeah, that's not because that wasn't a valid credential.
Yeah, wrong domain.
What?
You had the wrong domain.
Probably. But that allows you to store that so you can save that credential in your session. And it's helpful. And there's even ways that if you're using that, you can write that out to an XML file. I think Tim talked about that last time, or I think we kind of skim the surface of that, save it to an XML file. So if you're running it as a scheduled task and you need to do that, it's a secured way of storing your credentials. So you can still have it run as a script and run it as that particular person, but it works really well. And if not, we can always hit us up on Slack. We'll answer the questions there. I'll pop the code in there when I have a chance. Anything else, guys? Hit me up on Slack when school's been in session for about 2 months, and then I will answer any of your questions. I will have a life again.
It'll make you feel bad about your code because it'll take like a 13-liner that you wrote and did in one.
No, not always. Not yet, man. And then I get on the code and VExpert, and then I'm like, oh, that's sweet. So
Yeah, if you want to see some really good code, get on to VMware Code Slack workspace. That's typically where I'll go to ask for help most of the time.
Is that just a channel in our VMware, or is that
No, that's
No,
a
that's
separate workspace.
separate workspace.
To join VMware Code, you go out to code.vmware.com and you can join it through there. And there's a link to join the Slack channel.
There's also a PowerShell Slack, like not specific to VMware code.
Yeah, but it's pretty quiet.
Well,
Comparably.
if you don't open the channels, but the help channel is helping out a lot.
Yeah, I guess I don't get into that one very often, but compared to the VMware Code and the VExpert one, it's not busy at all.
Yeah, so yeah, there's some PowerCLI in there too. Yeah, I just haven't a chance to get in there in a while. But yeah, definitely. Slack has become a great tool since I started using it for leadership. Now I'm having fun looking in there, but it does. I don't know how Dave has so much time to post stuff all the time.
That's all I do. I just play in Slack all day. Yeah, here, Devin, do this. Oh.
Microsoft kind of specifically put their code in Slack, so it's formatted correctly.
Yes.
Oh, I haven't done that yet. I haven't had to post any code in there yet.
Hit the plus sign.
Hit the plus sign.
Oh, you plus sign?
Is it plus sign? Okay, I've done the triple.
Oh,
There-
code is 10.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh. I guess I should be on our Slack channel while we do that. Yeah. Oops. Oh, here. Let me.
Going to the PowerShell's PowerCLI one.
Yeah.
And if you ever want to look at the channels that are available in our Slack, because we may add them from time to time, just click on channels and it'll show you what's available. So, and if you don't follow us on Twitter, but you want to see our tweets, you can, there's a channel for that as well.
There's, if you go on that Lane Pub site, by the way, look at the author's website as well. There are some other good books that they have on there. The DevOps Collective. I haven't had a chance to read them all yet and go through them, but there's one that really intrigues me. Where's it at? Or maybe it's not in here. Loading. Or maybe it's not in here. Where's that? Okay, which box am I on? That should be. Okay. Oh, I know why it's not like. Say what? Yeah. I just picked up another book that intrigued me and I can't remember what it was. Oh, that's the actual book. Oh, that's not what I want. Library, what was it called? Oh, PowerShell by mistake. Okay, Don Jones wrote that. It's learning PowerShell by other people's mistakes and mistakes. It's actually it's a fun read. So, and PowerShell for noobs. I bought a couple of books on here. This PowerShell 101 from Mike Robbins is pretty good too. So that's all I got for you guys. I was going to try to do some PowerShell reports to HTML. But after I saw the Excel stuff that he was doing, my HTML looks kind of crappy anymore. I have nothing else unless you guys have some questions.
I'm going to present something too.
Oh, cool. Get up there.
Might as well.
The expert wants to represent. Do you get the expert shirt order, Brian?
Yes, I did. I wish I would have ordered a suit now that I thought about it. I saw he ordered two, and I'm like, what's the suit? I went big because I didn't want those skinny tight t-shirts.
No, they run big. I actually went down a size in it.
Well, it's better than I'll swim it.
So, yeah, I couldn't decide between red and black, so I got both. So, all right. Some of the stuff and share out my screen. All right. So what I was going to show you, there's actually what Ryan was talking about with writing PowerShell and taking it to HTML or PDFs and that type of thing. There's actually some scripts. Not Carl Webster. Aristotle, it's Webster. Carl Webster has some really good scripts that can help you document your environment. And I also use them to learn, looking through his scripts and figuring out how they work. And they're really, really good. So down here, you can see he has some of one does an Active Directory health check. There's inventory of your Active Directory. All kinds of things you can do with that. But it's kind of a repository. He hasn't created all these. So he has like a framework for PowerShell, and then other people take that and then they write their own to do some things, or they'll add to his to do extra things. But part of his framework is outputting to HTML, some PDF, some to Excel, Visio. He has one. Say VMware. Let's see here. I have them all downloaded on mine, so that's where I typically look. That's not. Is that the one I want? No, that's not the one I want. Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, this is a VMware documentation script. So that one was actually created by Jacob. I'm not going to say his last name because I'll probably butcher it. But that one's really good. If I would have thought about it sooner, before 4 o'clock this afternoon, I would have put them up on to our test environment and run them on there. But I will go ahead and pull those up, and I don't have those in my repository. No, they're not in there. They're in here. So let's look at, there's DHCP ones, or DHCP scripts, there's DNS scripts, NetScaler if you have those. Let's see, all right, NetScaler. And you can also see when you download the scripts, you get all his different versions of them. So as he creates new ones, he just adds it to the file, and when you download it, it takes them all. So you can see I have version 1, or I guess it's probably not all of them, but probably so many versions back. Like this is 1.6. He puts them in a text file and in PowerShell, so you can open them up without, if somebody's worried about security or whatever, they don't have to worry about something running in the background on them. But let's pull that up. But it'll go out, and you have to output to Word or Excel on this one. You do actually have to have it installed on your machine to do that. because it uses the API for. Well, I wonder if the viewer might work. I don't know. Do you know if the scripts that you're running, Tim, if they're actually using the API into Office, or is it just formatting them and then opening it? Okay. This is actually using the API within Word and Excel and all that. You got all kinds of languages and different things. But yeah, I'm not going to go through all these, but you can specify business name. So it actually outputs a report that you could take somebody and, if an auditor says, give me a documentation of your environment, you can go in and run the script. You can put in who you want the company name to be, who you want the creator to be. Otherwise, it defaults as you. There's all kinds of stuff, but it creates a title page and it puts all that information on it. You can just take that, hand it to somebody, or email it to them, or whatever. So.
Because we always have our documentation.
Oh, exactly. You update it every day when everything changes. So, but it has how-tos, how to use the script. So you just call the script and then you put in all your switches after it, how you want it to be formatted, whether it's text, HTML, PDF, or what have you. So comes out pretty good. I obviously can't pull mine up because that would probably break some policies. But it's basically the help file. If you can open it up and look at the help file as well.
Yeah, that'd be a fun script to actually read, though.
Yeah, so he has it signed and unsigned. So depending on what your policies are on that. Yeah, I got to show paragraph one. I hate that, but I was looking for a symbol because a script wasn't working and there were some hidden characters. So yeah, so you can see this is just basically the same thing that was open in Word, but it's very well documented. So you got your company name parameter. It typically pulls it from here by default. But if you can override that with the switch. So very good documentation scripts. Definitely take a look at them. There's VMware, XenApp, PVS. If you want to get everybody's home folders or home folder error thing, or home, I haven't used that one. But GPOs, and I'll talk about the time that takes to apply the GPOs. But again, there's DNS, DHCP, one for creating GPOs. I have not downloaded them for a while. I don't think I've downloaded them for about close to a year, so I'm sure these have all been updated. It's carlwebster.com, or if you just search for Carl Webster scripts, they're very, very, very popular. If you find an error in one or you want to make a change to one and update it, he's very willing to update them because these are community run. Let's see, is there any other ones I want to point out? What's that?
That's his title. It's the accidental signature.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mark. Post it in the Slack so I can remember it later.
Oh, yep. But the Active Directory health check is kind of neat. Just sort of checks specific things. So yeah, he's added some since I've been in here. So, but he's also in some of the Slack channels I'm in, so it's interesting talking to him. He's a very good presenter if you ever get the chance to listen to him. So
we're all on the page where they see the number of requests. That's fine. He's fine.
So, all right. So that was one thing I was wanting to mention. I save all my scripts, no matter how small or big they are. I just save them out there. I don't have them all in Git, though. So he was talking about Git. We've started using GitLab internally with just regular Git for syncing them. So we don't actually use them out on.
So you have a internal repository?
Yeah.
I just didn't want to stand on the server. But yeah, if in your environment where you're not the only one writing scripts, that probably would be a nice way of doing it.
Yeah, and we haven't rolled it out quite as much as we want to. So we made it where our level 1 staff, we can create scripts for them and they can just go out there and get them rather than have them out on a file share. We make sure they always have the most updated version. And it's just easier for permissions and that type of stuff. And if they make a change and they want to submit that, they can. So.
Or if there's a problem, they can submit a problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we like GitLab, we use it, but as we commit in, we'll actually have Jenkins kick off some processes and actually package it, put it in our repos. So there's always a way to
Wow.
Nice.
Yep. Automation is good. I have not messed with Jenkins. I've heard of it, but I have not messed with it. There was a specific one I was going to talk about. I'm going to pause my sharing for a second. I don't remember if this has anything in it. That shouldn't be public. No, there's nothing in here I can't share. So. All right, some other scripts and things. One that I've had the task of doing a few years ago was my boss and I think compliance wanted a monthly report of all of our active sync devices that are in Exchange. And then they compare it against our, they have a list that they compare them against. I don't have the list, otherwise I would have automated that portion of it too, but I'm sure they manually look at it. Actually, they probably don't even look at it, but anyways, I was tasked at pulling the list and sending it to them every month. So every month I have this script, and this is an older version. I don't have the newest one on this machine, but that goes in Active Directory or not Active Directory, Exchange, pulls a list and emails the list to a number of users or people. So you can see right here on, between like lines 42 through whatever, you can see the email, who it's being sent to. I know there's an easier way of doing it. At the time I wrote the script, I didn't realize that you could put a bunch of them in the same, basically make an array out of it. So this was very early on when I was doing PowerShell, and I'm sure this could probably be half as long as it is and probably get the same information. But it was a good spot to start with. So it actually creates 4 different files, active, inactive, blocked, and quarantined devices, and then it emails all 4 of them. But one of the big things that I'm doing with this is actually, have you guys all seen how in Active Directory it actually puts in the OS version for iOS, or what model they have of iPhone? Well, this is the OS version. It comes out as like 701.341. Well, what version is that? Well, all of it translates into a version that everybody knows it by. And this one's very outdated. It only goes up through 704. But pain behind this is that I have to keep going in and updating this part. And it's getting harder and harder to find the information online on what version's what. So most of it was community-based, that where I was getting them from before. But the one that actually runs has a lot newer stuff. But Android's similar. It's like it would come out like 100.403 for version 4.3. So yeah, Android versions are way behind on this too. But so to put it into easier formats, I created these to, I don't even remember what these are called. Switches? Yeah, switch statements, yeah. To basically convert the data into readable data that we know what it is. And then the same way with hardware versions. So the hardware versions come in maybe as like Apple iPhone 4, but it's actually an iPhone 4S. The iPhone 4 is actually iPhone 3. So, yeah, so it's like, it doesn't all make sense. So, you know, like the iPad 4C4 is actually an iPad mini with Retina display and Wi-Fi, but not LTE. That's the C5. So anyway, so we were doing all these switches to convert them so that they could put them into a readable form. I did not come up with most of the script. I looked online and found parts and pieces of it, pieced things together from other people's scripts, and it's out there online somewhere. I posted it somewhere. I have no idea where. But. Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the big things with scripting is you want to use the community, use your online resources to help learn, put things together. But as you create things, share with the community as well. Put them out, whether it's in GitHub or whatever repository you want to create or use, your blog or whatever.
Find smarter people than you and start looking at their code at their blog. I learned a lot. Don Jones, when he posts code about PowerShell, if he does a Microsoft Intune or Ignite session with Jeffrey Snover, I watch those every time because I'll learn something from both of those guys.
Yep.
That's how I learned about putting return 0 at the top of my sheet when I'm doing a presentation.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if that came across the recording or not, but they're talking about watching podcasts and using online community resources and following blog posts of other experts and some not really experts, but people that are becoming experts that are just sharing their knowledge and helping everybody else out. So that's how we all help each other and make us better. And then down at the bottom is send email. It's a pretty simple command. And then what to send, what to put in the attachments. So I use the send email quite a bit in my scripts, especially anything that I have run. We had another use case. We had a lady who every Monday morning, a process for a program would go out and download a file. And if it wasn't there, she would go in and check, not if it wasn't there, she would go in and check every Monday morning if it downloaded. And then of course, if she didn't find it, then she would go and open up a tech ticket for me to go in and find out what's going on, which typically meant the file just wasn't available yet when it tried to download. It downloaded 6 a.m. every Monday morning. Sometimes it'd be 6:02, 6:03 before they actually posted the file. And if Monday was a holiday, then it wouldn't get posted until Tuesday. So then the process would have to automatically get run. So I just wrote a script that checks that file, checks the last line. Does it have today's date in it? I have it run on Mondays. I probably should actually put a little more code into that, say, is last Monday's date in there, or, but it was good enough for what I needed. So anyways, then it emails me and a couple other people. Then it's actually 4 files on our test system, 2 on our test and 2 on our production. And it says it whether it's current or not. Don't even have to open the email. It just basically the header tells me what I need to know. And pretty much since I created it, I think we've only had 1 or 2 times that it didn't download. So that's okay. And they've changed the process on the vendor side to actually, it's actually posted the previous Thursday for the Monday now, so it's much better. But anyways, it's a good use case. Anytime you can find something like that to automate for somebody. It probably took her 3 or 4 months that she kept still going in every day and checking just to make sure it was right. And she told me one day, why am I doing this? Like, I don't know. I've been asking you the same question. That's why I automated it. She's like, yeah. So, because it wasn't just a quick thing to know. I mean, she was actually going into the program,
which had to pull the Excel file, which they just add a line every week. It's not, they don't clean it up. It just keeps getting longer and longer. So the more, it just takes longer to load into the software. And then, no, not that I've seen. There's not a lot of information in it. It's like 4 columns, but there's like thousands of rows. So anyways, it's the Federal Reserve for you, you know, who knows. But yeah, so it was, you know, taking her, and she was doing this on testing and production every Monday morning. You know, if she wasn't there, then she would do it when she got back on Tuesday. And if it was wrong on Monday, they'd have to go back and redo some of the loans if somebody had something that hit that and it wasn't updated. So yeah, it saved her probably 20 minutes every Monday, which isn't a lot, but hey, it's 20 minutes every Monday. Yeah, no, she can do some other stuff. But anyways, I don't know, do I have the script? But basically all I was doing was parsing the file. It's just a CSV file, pulled it in, told it to read the last line. And actually, let me see if I have that file. So that one's kind of an interesting one. Yeah, I have it somewhere. I don't have it in this area. Oh yeah, I do, right there. Pour down mud. Yeah, so it's FFIECs where it's actually looking, where it looks. But actually, you know what? This is.
We got cool giveaways now, thanks to Grant Ridge.
Yeah. You just have those laying around? Oh, you printed them. I see. Nice. This is now the official meeting place.
What other books can I have you?
So one of our leaders just went and printed books for us. So they have a book maker. That's nice. Wondered where you snuck off to. Yeah, so it's just going out and getting content, storing it into a file, and it's just pulling the last one and checking that. But I don't know why. Oh, I ended up.
Are you pulling that CSV off of a file server?
Yeah. Well, no. See. All right. So I this is where I combine 2 different scripts. So the vendor has a process that runs. It's actually a scheduled task that runs and goes out to download this file. The problem is there was something with how they were running it. I don't know exactly what it was doing, but for like a week-long period, it just would, or a month-long period, it just would not download the file. And all kinds of people there's a listserv that we're on that everybody was complaining about it. It's not downloaded. I'm like, how difficult is it? They're just going out to this website, grabbing a CSV, put it in a spot on the server. I mean, it's not a big deal. Well, so I just wrote a script to do it, gave it to everybody, and everybody started getting their stuff. Well, about a month later, then the vendor finally fixed it. They probably took my script and put it into their stuff, but I don't know. I mean, as you can see, that's the start of the download. That was the script, that section. And I try to document my scripts pretty well to where if somebody that doesn't know scripting looks at the file, they know what it's doing. And I know there's a segment of the community that says, well, if you write your scripts well enough, they should document themselves. Well, that would be maybe if I'm fully an expert, know exactly what I'm doing.
Or you.
Well, and I'm trying to, I also want it, if somebody else looks at it, that they can learn what I'm doing, because they may not be an expert in what they're doing.
Or if you don't look at that script for a year and you come back to it and you need to make a change, you want to document it yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Right.
I got yelled up in school when I was learning coding. You document everything.
Sorry. Yeah. So I go a little overboard sometimes on my commenting, but I figure better to have it there than not. And yeah. So anyways, then I combined it, so that's where it starts pulling in, looking to verify whether it's correct or not. And then it builds the email and it sticks it down at the bottom and puts it into the email. So, so yeah, nice use case. Workaround. Now, the vendor, of course, fixed it, but we don't use the vendor stuff still. We just use my script because it works, checks it, and sends it to me. And I know several other financial institutions that use the script as well. Now, of course, if you post something out in a repository or whatever, generalize it. So if you have server names in there, switch that out. You want to use variables as much as possible when it comes to server names. Personally, I don't have a lot of use case for that, but I need to more on some things. I don't use scripting as much as I should. So the question was, how often do I use CSVs to import into my scripts?
There's some modules for it, and I use import CSV all the time. Again, it's in my building design. I created the CSV file, so I knew where everything was at. But it's just playing with it, and once you get your stuff, once you get your process down, it's really simple. It is really, once it pulls it in as an object, and then each one of those is an object. It works really well.
Yeah, I probably could have used import CSV here instead of get content. But yeah, this did what I needed it to at the time. So that I probably wouldn't needed to split it either if I would have just done import CSV. But anyways.
Depending on how long ago that was in there, maybe import CSV may not have been working. I'm going to go direct that script.
Last year.
Import CSV was working.
Yeah, I always try to keep versions. I'll typically to start versioning it up here, what I changed. So this one I haven't changed, haven't needed to. So yeah, I definitely probably could clean it up, but Jen, it's kind of how I learn, and works. Yeah, I have some ugly ones.
Were you doing region folding of your code there too?
Doing what?
You were folding your code in there too? Or you weren't doing region too? You just had, that's what you're doing, break up your sections.
I needed a particular.
I was looking at your comments and it looked like you had your, so you were doing your sections of your code.
Oh, yeah. So this is start of get last date added to section. And then this is where it ends doing that. And then it starts comparing the date in that field to the date or the current date. So that's where I could change it to say Monday. I'm sure there's code I could figure out to say Monday of this week, of current week. But then if you run it on Sunday, well, it should be the Monday of the previous week. So it really would get complicated doing that. And again, it runs every Monday, so it shouldn't matter. Mike?
So how long do you spend getting all the comment lines to match up in the perfect row that you have going on there?
I don't know if they're perfect. Are they?
Yeah, they are. Pretty attractive.
I didn't know if you maybe had a, probably
not.
That's close.
Did you guys know you could do that? Highlight straight down like that? Without highlight and everything?
Notepad.
Yeah, but you can do it in Word and other things too. It's hold down the Alt key. And then you can, so that's just regular, and then you hold down your Alt key and
See, you learn something every day.
and you can copy and paste that too like that, so it makes it nice. I saw somebody else do it sometime. I'm not going to take credit, but let's see, another one that was there's a script to put in custom emoticons into Jabber. I know everybody needs that script, right?
got a script to change my. I got a script to change shortcuts on my desktop when I change versions of Java, so I don't have to mess with them.
Hey,
It's the things that make your life easy.
we're like, needs to have a dote. So I was like, there's gotta be a way of putting custom icons in there. So we put a Homer Simpson icon to that script. That script doesn't actually put that in there. It actually copies it from the network out to users' computers or whatever. It's so that when they see it, they have it. So yeah. And then they've since then put a smiley that has the face palm in it or whatever. But this was over 2 years ago, you know. I mean, hey. Yeah, there's another one I was wanting to show that I did recently. I have too many places I have scripts. Is this part of my problem? But part of it is once we started using Git, I moved everything. So I always had it in my own script file, but then there's also one out in the network that other people had access to. And this is why we have Git. We can just keep it in one place. They go to a website because most of our level 1 techs, they don't know command line stuff. Some of them are getting to know stuff and as they go through some of the scripting and stuff, and they're starting to love it. And so I'll probably end up showing them Git on the command line as well. But sometimes the website's easier for somebody who doesn't get into the command line much. So let's see. Oh, this one. So I talked about this one on our Slack channel a while back, and I do need to verify this one. I have a generic one, and then I have one that has some stuff in it that, all right, this one's fine. It had some comments in it that were, yeah, we have lots of picnics. Do you guys know what picnic is? Problem in chair, not in computer? All right. Where's my share screen again?
I shared that with Texas this morning. I have a feeling we're going to start listing it and we'll have that conversation.
I've had to have that conversation because we've had it in notes. Luckily, they didn't check the box to show. Well, actually, I saw it in a solution, and it was posted into our solutions, but luckily it was in our private solutions, not in the public solutions. And so it shouldn't have been in solutions anyways, because I mean, it's one thing to put it in the solution for a ticket, but even it shouldn't have been there. But then to put it into the repository of solutions that are searchable, search for picnic, I guess. I don't. But anyways, so we had an issue. Well, that's not an issue. We have branch servers at our 20-something locations that I'm hoping to get rid of. But whenever we do an update, it's a file server that every time we do an update to our core banking system, our IS department has to go out and transfer all those files out to the branch servers. And the process that they were going through, so this was 3-4 times a year, sometimes more. And they do it on production, and then there's 3 test systems. So it's, now the test systems aren't at all the branches, so it's not compounded that much. But anyway, it's still a big process. And they didn't necessarily know which files exactly to transfer. They knew certain ones had to be, but then there were other ones that were iffy, so they transferred it anyways. And it's 2-3 gigs per location that they were transferring from the same file server. So what they would do is take it, zip it up, copy it over to every branch server manually, and then go out to that branch server, unzip it, and then copy the files from where they unzipped it into the location it needed to be. So I'm like, all right, we can script this, but it's not something I know exactly how to do it the best way. So I talked to some V experts in the Slack channel, and I talked to some of these guys in our group, talked to some in the VMware code. Of course, I found out later there's an easier way than when I did it, but at some point I had to quit talking to people about it and just do it. So so that's what this one does. And so Tim was talking about, you were talking about the parallels, right? Yeah, earlier. And so there's another option rather than doing parallels, you can actually do batches. So that's what I actually ended up doing, was creating batches. So instead of doing all 27 or 20, not 27 servers, like 23 servers. We have 27 locations, but only like 23 have the server. So rather than doing them all at the exact same time or doing them, one at a time and waiting for one to finish, because some only have a T1 line. To transfer 2 or 3 gigs is going to take hours. So now, luckily, we're up to I think 10 meg at our slowest branch now, but I think they finally got that done. But anyways, yeah. So I didn't want to run every one of them at the exact same time. And I also, during this, if I'm going to go through this, I don't want IS to even go through and create these zip files or whatever. So what I did is it just takes they have a folder that I said, put every file in there that you want out on a branch server. And I'll just compare that to the one out on the branch server, and anything that's local, that's different from what's there. I didn't want to just do newer, because there's some of the branch servers say they have newer files, but they're not. It's just the way they copied them. And because they were creating zip files, the next, they're basically all new files every time they transferred them over, even though they technically weren't. So it ended up only being like 200 megs of data that actually had to transfer to every single location. Some had to transfer more than others based on how they were originally done. So anyway, so what this actually does, it cycles through, and I did, trying to find where I did, there's a place here I specified how many. Yeah, see, I commented, so I would remember batch variables. All right, so batches, servers per batch. So this one here is actually set to 1. That was just my test, because I was testing with 1. And then I eventually tested with 2, where I finally actually ended up putting the script. But that would tell how many servers needed to be done at a time. And then this down here is saying, take servers this through whatever. So it would take the number of servers per batch and create that variable. And some of it, I don't fully understand what I did, because I took what other people were doing and I made sense that what it was doing, but I can't explain it exactly to make sense of it. But anyways, that's what it's doing. So the dot between the variables saying do this through this. So what this one does, it'll just cycle through and it'll do, so if you say say you had 15 batches to do, or 15 servers to transfer to, and you put in 3 per batch, within the batch, it's going to do them sequential. So it just goes in and does one, and once it finishes, it'll go to the next one, so on. But that makes 5 batches. And those batches would run all at the same time. So there's 5 batches running with 3 servers each if you did it that way. This goes 15 divided by 3 is 5. So yeah, and then it also did a reboot of the it did a reboot of the server first, because it's a file share. Somebody grab me a Kleenex by any chance, or a napkin or something, please. Appreciate it. But because these are a file share that people are launching the app from, some of the files will be locked if they did not close out of the file or out of the program like they're supposed to when they left for the day. This was being done on a Saturday afternoon. We were open on Saturdays, so there's a good chance somebody was running that file. And they would have that issue from time to time where they would transfer stuff. Thank you, appreciate it. Sorry, allergies are just killing me this week. So I rebooted the VM. All of our branch servers, even though they're on one single VM or one single server at each location, we actually virtualized them because of things like this. It makes it easier to reboot. It's easier to pull up the console. It's easier for updates and things if it's in a VM, and we can take snapshots and, just all the benefits of the VM. Then we use the Robo licensing, so it's pretty cheap for 25 licenses. No tech pricing, but it's cheap comparably to trying to do every one or trying to keep them as the free version and managing them separate. It allows us to do it in vCenter. So anyway, so it reboots the VM, and then now this also goes and to get actually the list of servers. We could do a CSV like what you were talking about. But rather than doing that, we're actually using PowerCLI to go into vCenter, and we have it all in its own. We put it in a data center, even though it's not technically a data center. We just grouped them separate from our other one. So I just went into data center, said grab all the VMs, and then those are the ones you're going to hit against. And you could, as far as doing PowerCLI stuff like that, if you wanted to do it just to a certain type, if it's just Linux VMs or just Windows VMs or whatever, you could parse those out, which I did in some of my testing, because we have some Linux servers and some Windows, and I wanted to test them a little bit separately or different. So it reboots the VMs before the file transfers, make sure no one's accessing the files. See, that's why I make comments. And then it waits for the VMware tools to start before it actually will start or continue. And the wait for tools is a function. You can see the function up here. Pulls in the VM name, and it basically loops through, waiting on it, and and then it just cycles through the different shares. And the reason why there's multiple shares, some of them had test and some of them had production only, so that some of them had multiple. And then I emailed the results, and my battery just died. So anyways, I'm done sharing. But anyways, then it emailed, when it was done with that batch, it would email out to the person in IS, or a couple people, that it finished, and then they watched to make sure every branch finished. And rather than spending hours and hours on a Saturday and Sunday doing these, all they had to do was just watch their email and what they did was went in at like 10 or 11 o'clock on Sunday night. Are there any that didn't finish? Well, they'd already all finished, they're done. They didn't have to do anything. So rather than having 2 or 3, sometimes 4 people in for 4 hours, basically doing file transfers, we're able to automate it. And again, it could have been probably a little prettier, but.
Be the automator, not the automated.
What's that?
Be the automator.
Yeah, like my sticker says, yeah. Yeah, that's that sticker that's on my laptop, that's center one there. That's actually zenitblog.com's sticker. It's Eric Haverstein. He's a very smart dude, lives down in Brazil. He's from Norway, but lives in Brazil. It's kind of interesting listening to some stories from him, but yeah.
Should we do the drawing?
Yeah, we do have drawings. We don't want to forget that.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
So we'll let whoever comes up pick what they want. But we'll demonstrate the umbrella. So this is a Rebel umbrella, which I had never heard of one until I was looking at our different things we can get from VMware. We never know what he's doing. He's just got a remote. But anyways, so it looks like the wrong end of umbrella, but so that, yeah, so then when you close it up, you don't get wet. So that's the Rebel umbrella. Pretty cool. So now you know what it does if you want it. And I've got bad luck for opening an umbrella in the inside. So is it only 7 years? Let's open it again. No, I'm joking. So anyways, Justin, you want to do the first?
What else
Are you two there yet? Oh, you gotta go to admin.
Oh, that was already there.
Oh, no, you're on there. You're on there. Yeah, select name random. All right, John. What do you want? Do you want the umbrella? Do you want the Echo Dot or the tumbler? All right.
Sweet.
There you go.
I have rain too.
All right, so we have a VMware Glacier tumbler, branded tumbler. It's not their tumbler, and Echo Dot.
All right.
Justin Morgan. Which one do you want? It's a tumbler. It's not the mug. Jeez.
I already have too many smart devices.
Yeah, that's why I'm donating this one. Frontier sent me this one, and I'm like, I don't need another dot. My kids use it.
Turn the lights on and off. My kids love
We use it as an intercom within the house. My kids will call me on it, and so it shows my phone because it goes through my phone to make the calls. It'll show myself calling myself. It's really weird. I'm surprised it works, but it does.
It was Tim came up.
I'm sorry, what?
Tim.
Tim? There you go. You're welcome. All right. Does anybody else have anything, or do we need to discuss anything before we go, or? Yeah.
Think about
Comments for you?
next quadrant of things, so.
Yeah, we can do more of these. And that's what these monthly meetings are for, things like this. Luckily, that we were able to have exact, or kind of a themed event, but we can do that same thing. We can do more PowerShell. If you guys have situations you've done, like where you guys came in and presented on some issues you've had in the past and how you overcame them, and that's what this is for. We talk a lot more on Slack now, so some of that is like it'd be repeat on here, but no, we're still recording these, so you can go back and look at them. I only edit the front and the back. I don't go through and pull out breaks on the YouTube videos. We did find on the June meeting. Let's see, was that when Cohesity was here? Their slides didn't come through, so you just got his talking. So that one hasn't been posted yet because I'm waiting on him to send the slides so that I can stick the slides back in and hope I can kind of line it up. So if not, I'll just put it in and tell him to link to his chat or his thing. Oh, speaking of posting slides and stuff, do you mind if I put the notes that you gave us and stuff in the repository and put a link to them on YouTube? The stuff. Okay. I didn't figure there would be an issue, but I don't assume, so I try not to. It gets me in trouble.
If anybody's interested, they did come out with a new version. I posted in our VMUG chat. They came, or not chat.
Our community page. Yeah.
They came out with a new version of the Auto Lab for generating either VMware or VM Workstation or Fusion or Ravello. But if anybody's interested, we could spend the time talking about setting up your own virtual lab in Ravello, which is on cloud. I mean, that's an option too.
Didn't the experts just have an opportunity to get on a call on that?
So, yeah, Ravello has, so you have the vExperts get some, use of Ravello for free for so much time each month or each quarter. No, it is each month. Well, they have a vExpert community call like once a month or something, or once a quarter or something. I haven't been able to attend any of them, but yeah, they do have those.
Get onto that because that one sounded interesting. They're talking about the lab environment. So
Yeah, so yeah, VMNT or the VMUG or the VMware communities, which is still separate from VMUG. I don't know why there's two, but two separate entities. They do a weekly podcast every Wednesday at 1, I think, our time. It's either noon or 1. Some of the guys that work for VMware do a podcast on their lunch hour every Wednesday. So you can either listen to it through TalkShoe, or you can go to onto their VMware page and watch it live. So, or you can go back and watch it. So they're usually pretty good, get some good information. I have not watched the last couple of them for various reasons, but yeah. All right. Well, don't forget about our next meeting, September 19th, 5:30, down on Jefferson at Casa. Does everybody know where that is? The Casa Restaurante. So it's already posted out on our website. So go ahead and register if you haven't. That should be recorded as well. This time, I think we'll probably end up using our own projector. We'll see when we get there if they've changed their bulb or not, but guessing probably not. So that'll help quite a bit, because with having a remote presenter, we want to make sure that it's a good environment for that versus the last time we did it when we were in the pub just right over here. And didn't work out quite as well as we wanted it to. So, all right. Well, let us know if you guys have any suggestions on what hands-on lab to do and topics. So our next monthly meeting outside of our quarterly ones will be October, whatever third Wednesday is in October. We don't currently have a topic, so we'll need to come up with something so we can, and we've also talked about maybe just getting together and eating and having some beer or whatever, and maybe do something fun and not actually do anything.